Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're looking at the Sig Rattler. This was just introduced at the SHOT Show here in 2018. They're still relatively rare on the commercial market just as far as being released. I was able to get this one directly from Sig to be able to do a review on. Very, very fortunate to be able to do that. Now there's something really, really special about this system that you see right here. This originally came with a Sig Brace. It had a 3-position Sig Brace. This has been transferred over to become an SBR. So we have a folding stock on it here. The way that this was delivered was as a pistol, not as an SBR. It's been converted to an SBR in the books. So we look at the rifle. We have a Sig rifle. We have a Sig Optic. We have a Sig flashlight. We have a Sig suppressor. We have Sig ammunition. What we have here is a complete Sig solution for a firearm. Every component used on this rifle is manufactured by Sig. Very, very few companies, I can't really think of any other one that would have this option to be able to have a whole weapon system which is solely supported by the same manufacturer. This is one of the first times I'm bringing this to you as showing you an entire Sig system. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about the suppressor, the light, the optic, and the ammunition a little bit later. But let's jump right into this. A few years back, Sig released their Mcx Rifle Mpx Pistol. Now, the Mpx pistol is 9mm. It was offered in a rifle caliber with a 16-inch barrel. This is the MCX, which is the rifle version, which has the quick change barrel, 300 Blackout, 5.56, different barrel lengths. You have the Handguard, which you can change out different lengths in handguards. This particular one's a key mod. Sig now is releasing these in a M-lock situation, but you also have the receivers. You have various stock options. This particular one is a side folding telescopic. You have what we have here, which is the side folder. You do have a telescopic. And you do have, of course, the pistol brace, so you have several different options. But all the rifles and the pistols stem from the MCX. Now, the interesting thing about the MCX is it was designed around the 300 Blackout cartridge, not around the 5.56. It was later adapted to the 5.56 cartridge. It was designed for specific military units who requested the 300 Blackout. When you had the 300 Blackout barrel, you would have an adjustable valve for subsonic and supersonic. Of course, you can fire supersonic in a suppressed position, but this was really designed 300 Blackout for this purpose, to be subsonic in the subsonic position, which these rifles are so quiet you can basically just hear the action click and a little bit of a pop. They're incredible on that position. As you see here, we have a Sig Optic on here as well. This is basically a red dot. Now we're going to get back into the Mcx Rattler. Starting from back to front, on this side we have the side folding stock, which is what makes this an SBR. But what it came with was a Sig Brace. Now the Sig Brace, as you can see, has 1 position, 2 position, and 3 position. And you can see that brace. So with the current ATF ruling now stating that you can put this against your shoulder, that's making this pistol so much more viable. The upper series is referred to as the Pdw Upper. You'll see there's no forward assist. It is much, much shorter compared to the rifle. And the Handguard, as you see here, has 2 slots of M-lock. Charging handle you'll see on here is ambidextrous, so you have latches on both positions. Now, like any other Sig MPX or MCX, the charging handle is not compatible with that of any M16 or AR-15 type rifle. We have an ambidextrous selector lever, or safety. It's a shorter arm on the right side versus a longer arm on the left side. It's very, very high profile, very, very easy to get to. Further on the lower receiver, you're going to see that we have a rather small pistol grip, which is also manufactured by Sig, which someone of my stature, this is sort of hard to get a hold of, but somebody with normal sized hands wouldn't have too much of a problem with it. Looking on the back of the lower receiver, you're going to see a QD point. Now, like any quality rifle, you're going to have 70-75 T6 forgings of the upper and lower receiver. We do have a cartridge case deflector on here. The trigger pull on here is 6.5 pounds, standard mil-spec type trigger. However, you do have the ability to put the Geisley trigger in here, which is absolutely incredible, which gives you a much better trigger pull. We have an elongated magazine release, which is very similar to that. It's identical to that of the MCX and MPX. On the opposite side here, we have a ambidextrous magazine release. We also have the bolt catch. The bolt catch has a longer lever on here, which makes it much easier for you to press in to lock the bolt open. Of course, the top releases it. We also have a cam pin guard in here, as we do on all the MPX, MCX series, to prevent any damage to the inside of the receiver from the unlocking process and firing process of this being a piston-operated carbine. The optic we have here is the Sig Optic. It's a Romeo 3. It's a small red dot. It's a 1 by 25 millimeter diameter lens. It's a MSRP of around $479.99. But I'm sure you could find it a little less cheaper than that. It takes a CR2 at 2032 battery. The whole housing here is made out of aircraft aluminum. It's also water immersion up to 1 meter, and also fog proof. And what it also does is the optic mount is large enough so if you were to have your iron sights on here, it will be co-witness. As you see, we don't have iron sights on here because we have the flashlight on the top. The flashlight is the Foxtrot 1 Sig light. You see, it's a pistol light, and it's mounted at the top of the 1903 rail, where you could also put this below, or whatever you choose. If you had an M-lock down here, you could put it underneath. You do have 2 on and off switches on there as well. Now, this particular one's a 200 lumen light. It does come with 100, 200, and 300 lumen. You can actually adjust this. So you have one system. You can change out your lumen you have on here. It's a 1913 rail mount. Now, this is not too expensive. This is around $180 MSRP, which I'm sure, again, you can get that for a little bit less than that. Sig has gotten into the suppressor market in a big way. They make some very, very incredible suppressors, and they're also the way they manufacture them is rather interesting. This particular one here is their model SRD762-QD, QD meaning quick detach. It's also known as a tubeless sound suppressor. As you can see, the segments are welded together. There's no external tube. That's one of the things that makes this thing very, very unique. The design is also einconal. It's manufactured of stainless steel. Weighs about 17 ounces. Diameter is about 1.62 inches. And the overall length is 7 inches. Obviously, it's black in color. We're going to show you how this thing disassembles and reassembles. To disassemble, you rotate, you give it a small turn. Then you have a lever you push inward. And that gives you... take it right off. Now, you have a taper lock muzzle device on here. Now, I will say, when you're shooting supersonic ammunition, it's a flamethrower. You have a lot of concussion that comes out of there, but that also comes because you got a short 5.5-inch barrel in here. And along with that, we have also a gas regulator on here. We have a 2-position gas valve for suppressed and unsuppressed. Now, this being 300 Blackout, of course, you're going to be using the supersonic with the unsuppressed mode, and you're going to be using it in the suppressed with the subsonic. But I will tell you, there's one heck of a muzzle blast and a lot of flash that comes out of this. It's not a very efficient, well, it's not efficient at all as a flash suppressor. You know, if you were to have this in the dark, you can light up a room. For the most part, this rifle was designed to be used with a sound suppressor, in my opinion, because when you have this in the suppressed configuration, it's ideal. It is as quiet as can be. It's as reliable as can be. When you fire supersonic in it, your muzzle flash is incredible. Your muzzle blast is incredible. It's just much, much more comfortable to fire in the with a suppressed 220 grain ammunition. To reinstall, put back on. All the way, and now you're good to go. This is a bag that's produced by Sig for the Sig Rattler. Now, if you were to have the Sig Brace on here, it's not going to fit. But when you put any other side folding stock on it, fits in there perfectly without the suppressor on. We have this is magnetic. As you can see, we have room for 2 magazines. We have room for boxes of ammunition. Then when we open it up, the weapon drops right in like so. You also have a pocket in here for your sound suppressor. Everything fits in here just perfect. So this is a really neat gadget to have along with your Rattler. Next thing I want to talk about is ammunition. Now, I have been shooting Sig ammunition for the last couple of years. Excellent, excellent ammunition. The first we have here is the 125 grain OTM, which is supersonic. Extremely accurate ammunition. However, in a short barrel like this, you lose so much velocity from having only a 5.5-inch barrel that your real benefits to even having supersonic is significantly lower than it would be if this was a standard 16-inch. What we have here is the Sig 220 grain 300 Blackout. This ammunition, this sound suppressor, this weapon system is ideal. It is exactly what 300 Blackout was designed for. Very, very quiet performance. Accurate at short range, which is what it's designed for. We were shooting this ammunition at the 25 yards and at 50 yards, and we were all within 1.5 to 2 inches with this. And of course, you would expect to see a drop. We saw a 1.5 to 2 inch drop between 25 yards and 50 yards with it. For those who want to hunt, we have a solid copper 300 Blackout supersonic round as well. Now, with a barrel this short, this primary use is going to be for personal defense. You have too short of a barrel to get enough velocity out of there for it to be useful for hunting or anything along those lines. This is an ideal PDW. With a short barrel, with a sound suppressor, quiet. It's ideal for sensory incapacitation. It's anything where you would require a real quiet type of a small arm. These come with Lancer magazines. I just happen to have a Mcx and 300 Blackout tag on there. I was out to the range. I had 7 or 8 firearms, so I wanted to keep my magazines. This is really a good safety thing for anybody who goes out with multiple calibers. Just make sure that you know that this is for 300 Blackout. You have ones for 5.56. You have ones for 760 by 39 also. The magazine that comes with this rifle is the Lancer 300 Blackout magazine. Now, I've used the standard Lancer magazine 5.56 with 300 Blackout for several years, and I've never ever had an issue with subsonic or supersonic ammunition. Supposedly, the big difference with this one is it increases the strength of the spring on the front to help keep up those heavier 220 grain projectiles. So, for as far as was this magazine even necessary, I have no idea. I never had an issue, and I've shot them in several different rifles. But this is what it comes with: is the 300 Blackout magazine. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the rifle apart and show you what's inside. This is a light 5.1 pound rifle without the suppressor on it. So we're going to take this thing apart and we're going to see what's inside. And we're also going to talk about some of the enhancements that have been made to it. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take off the suppressor. Again, we're going to loosen it, press the button. Here we go. The stock is attached via 1913 rail. As you can see, the dovetail, which is cut into the stock. So again, we have the pistol stock. We have the side folding stock. We also have a stock identical to this, but it has a standard stock back on it for telescopic. We also have, as I showed you on the first rifle, the MCX, which had a telescopic as well as side folding. So we do have a lot of different options for stocks on here. Disassembly, you have a front pivot pin and a rear takedown pin. We're going to push from the right. We have an upper-lower receiver, the same as that of an M16. So here we have the lower receiver. Now this particular one has been changed to the Geisley trigger. We initially was test fire with a standard trigger, then we put this one in here. And we can see the guard we have on here. Now as you see this guard here, what this is for, so when the hammer comes back, the back of the hammer is not able to hit the disconnector to cause damage to the disconnector. So we have the 2-stage Geisley trigger on this one. And again, it comes with the standard mil-spec trigger, and again that trigger pull was 6.5 pounds. So we can see the inside of the receiver beautifully finished as we would expect from any SIG type rifle. You cannot put any M16 type receivers on here due to the fact this is not set up for it. So this is strictly for the MCX Mpx line. Now once we have the upper receiver removed, now we can remove the handguard, which we can see the 5.5 inch barrel. Now if you notice right here, this is your gas valve for suppressed and unsuppressed. Now you do have a hole in the front so you can use it to adjust it. Now you can use a projectile, you could use any kind of a suitable tool to make that adjustment. You also have a mark on here as well that shows the positions. To remove the bolt, pull back. And the bolt carrier group, as well as your charging handle. Now this is a current up-to-date bolt carrier group. The end cap here is actually made out of steel and it's pinned in place so it cannot be removed. You do have the MPX bolt, your carrier, dual springs. You have your piston right here. For disassembly, you have your firing pin retaining pin, which we're going to push. This is captive. As you can see, you also have a rubber O-ring which holds it in place. The firing pin, to remove the firing pin, you have to lift upward on the lock. Now the firing pin will come right out. Notice in your firing pin you do have a spring. We lift upward on the recoil spring assembly. We're going to rotate the cam pin. I'm going to remove, pull the bolt out. As you can see, the bolt has some similarities with the 7 lugs, but it is not compatible with that of the M16. Remove the extractor. Very similar to a M16 extractor, and you can notice we do use a rubber O-ring as well. As you can see, there's no tail on here. It's definitely built very strong. So for reassembly, drop that back into place. Push inward. Install your extractor pin. Install into the bolt. You want to make sure your extractor is pointing towards the right side. Now, I will say putting the cam pin in is relatively tricky because you don't have a lot of room in here. So I may fumble a little bit in here. Yep, got that really quick. Rotate. Push forward. Now, when you install the firing pin, you have to be sure you pull up on the firing pin block. Drop in like so. Now your firing pin retaining pin, push inward. And there's your bolt carrier group fully assembled again. Your pistons in here, like any of the MPX or MCX systems, by loosening these screws, you can remove the barrel. You can put a longer barrel on here if you so choose, and you could also put a different caliber barrel on here if you so choose. That's part of the beauty of the MPX or MCX system, is the easily removable barrels. As the Sig Rattler was received, it came with the three-prong flash suppressor. It was replaced with the taper lock so you could put the suppressor on it. So for reassembly, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our handguard. Now the way the handguard is locked in place is you'll see there's a tab on here. You're going to put all the way back, and that slides right into the slot where the front pivot pin goes into place. So that locks that into place. Now we're going to install it on the lower receiver. As you can see, now the handguard's locked into place. Now we're going to insert the charging handle. Another interesting note on the charging handle is you actually have metal locking tabs on here. So the aluminum will wear out eventually. By having the metal pins, it increases your longevity of the life of the receiver for as far as the charging handle locking in place reliably is concerned. Insert the carrier mechanism. Of course, you have to make sure we're in the unlock position. Install the carrier mechanism. Drop into place. And like we saw here, we're going to put the suppressor back on. That's all there is to it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to the range and we're going to see how it shoots. Now we're going to be shooting with the Sig suppressor on the Rattler with Sig ammunition as well. Basically what we have here is an entire Sig weapon system. We have the firearm, the optic, the flashlight, as well as the sound suppressor. So everything that you see here is Sig. Super quiet. Now, as you can see by firing the supersonic, it's a lot less enjoyable, just due to the blast and the flash. I mean, you can even feel the heat on your hand. But once we switched over to the subsonic and with the suppressor, it was just as sweet could be. This is a lot of fun. You can definitely see the practicality in this for a PDW or personal defense weapon. I imagine we'll see more and more accessories come out. But due to the fact that this whole system is what we refer to as a complete Sig weapon system, this is another step forward in Sig's ability to provide a customer with a single solution. For a military customer or a law enforcement customer, they can go and they can say, hey, here's the firearm, here's the flash suppressor, here's the light, here's the optic, and our ammo. And so they can get everything from one place. And there is no other manufacturer out there that I'm aware that can provide everything: ammunition, optics, sound suppressors, and lights. That's a very unique aspect about Sig. Now, this is not a cheap weapon system. Now, just the Rattler alone, without the optic, without the light, without the suppressor, you're looking at $2,719 MSRP. So, for an overall price of $4,397, this is all MSRP, you would get the carbine, the optic, the light, the suppressor, the carrying bag. Of course, ammunition is separate. So, you know, for one price, you get everything. It was a lot of fun. I have to say, a lot of fun. For links to purchase all of this gear, please go to our Full 30 or our BitChute, and you'll be able to see links to get all these components from Brownells. Again, these rifles at this point, the Rattler pistols, are still extremely rare. They're in very high demand right now, and there's not a lot of them out there. So you may have a little bit of a hard time finding one right now, but I imagine in the future you won't have a problem. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave me a comment. I'll try and get back to you. Please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. And please consider making donations to our Patreon, and we could definitely use assistance so we can keep bringing you guys videos.